get a little notice on your phone that we went live. We'll be on Facebook and YouTube.
I did not finish.
Okay, so let me double check online. Okay, so go to our Facebook page.
Yeah, I'm there.
So looking at myself.
Oh, yeah, there you are now.
All right, so we're good. So we are live, and welcome to the Cedarville Area Historical Society. My apologies for watching online. You just popped on saying, "Hey, you're early." I thought we were starting at 7:30, but apparently we changed it to 7 last year, and I forgot. So this is the first program. So our next program will start at 7, and so we'll wait a couple of minutes for everyone to show up. So my name is Steve Myers. I am privileged of being the president of the Historical Society of Cedarville, mostly because nobody else wants to be, so I'm here at your service. And I happen to be the commander of the American Legion, post 1224. So it's talking about our subject today, which is Cedarville Memorial Day Parade. History is pretty special because both the Historical Society and the American Legion play a big role in putting that together, historically and presently. So I usually am, I'm usually behind the recorder over there, recording the presenter. But when I was doing all the studying and research, it occurred to me that, wait a second, I'm the presenter this time, so I better do a good job. And I tend to be a perfectionist, so I spent, no kidding, 12 to 14 hours researching this. But it was fun stuff. And I like history. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But I'll tell you just a little bit more about what we're going to talk about today in a few minutes. But first, we wanted to start right off with a presentation. I mentioned I'm usually behind the scenes because it was always Jim Bay who was up here running the show, and it always it's going to turn into a. All right, he always did a great job. Hard to fill his shoes. But what we're going to do our best. I know he would get up here right away and say, "All right, 7:30, we're going to start on time." All right, so he would get everybody going, and off we go. So, Jim became, going back with the Historical Society, his ties were back when my family, my wife and I, Sue, and the kids were still in the Marine Corps. Probably 1998. We left South Carolina. Sue and I flew down to Brownsville, Texas, proceeded to fill the largest U-Haul they had, a 26-footer. The first thing Jim said was, "You were not going to fit all the stuff into that U-Haul." And I said, "Give me a second." I looked around the house. I said, "Yeah, I can fit it all." He said, "There's no way. There's no way." I said, "Jim, don't forget, I'm in the military, we've moved 16 times up to that point, and I know how to pack a U-Haul. Right? They said, we're going to fit everything in. And sure enough, we got to the last misfits and miscellaneous that kills it, but we got to the last part. Didn't want to open it after that, but we got everything in there. So Sue and I drove all the way from Brownsville in 2 days, Brownsville, Texas, all the way up to Cedarville, into their house on Mill Street, and unpacked it all, and that's where the journey began. In '98, we didn't retire until 2004, but Jim was involved with the Historical Society. I remember him doing research for Bonnie's family. Years before that, he would be in touch with the Historical Societies. Well, he said Cedarville Society. I still call it the Historical Society. Doing some research on Bonnie's background. And eventually, moving up here, he got involved, and they saw his incredible mind and his journalism background, and he naturally just, they just said, here, you take this, and he ran with it. So, what you see it's like I'm doing the memorial, we're not ready to do that yet. This is a dedication for the building. But what you see here is his ability to run up the troops and get things done. And I saw that in him. And over the years, if you look at all of our newsletters from 2004, they're on our website, going all the way up, you'll see the progression. Each room that we did, starting from downstairs, the bathrooms, working our way to the south room, the janitor's room. That actually was a theater for a while. We did down just below us at first. Then we did a lot of presentations, including our spoof that many of you were actors in. I know Galen was, and I know, and actually you can watch that spoof. You can watch that spoof
with the pig.
On YouTube. Yes, it's on YouTube. I actually took it and I enhanced it and put it back on. So watch it now on YouTube, and you will be. It's hilarious.
It is hilarious.
It's hilarious. But that's one of his shining moments. Is he created that, and when I watched it recently, knowing now more history than when it came out, it's like, that's actually pretty witty, pretty funny. So, we thought as a board, we thought it fitting, very fitting, to dedicate this building to Jim. And this plaque here, it says, this building is dedicated to James C. Bay, President Emeritus. He was president from 2004 to 2020. And it says, whose vision and passion for maintaining history for others to enjoy was instrumental in overseeing and making the restoration of this building and its collections possible. So this will be mounted next to the door as you come in. As far as I'm concerned, this is the James C. Bay Historical Museum of Cedarville. But 100 years from now, they're going to be looking back doing presentations on pioneers of Cedarville, and they'll be including Jim, I'm sure, for the history and that he has brought back to this community, rich history that he has brought back. So thank you. You can clap. Whatever. Let's get out of the business here. So that's just the way it was. But yeah, when it was presented to him at the a few months ago at the Lena home, you could tell he was elated with this. So yes.
So, in the process, he had to round up $250,000 to do all these projects.
Well, he was tailor-made for this. It was his calling and his destiny to end up here. I mean, he did State Street. Downtown, he was instrumental in putting that State Street Mall together. That's what he did, all the fundraising and all that stuff. I mean, he didn't like it, which is why he retired up in Wisconsin, in north of the Dells, and had his friendship to become a antique restore antiques. So he wanted to kind of get away from that. But that was some land they had in the family. They were visited, and they retired there. And then I met Sue and found out that they had 240 acres in Wisconsin. And I said, "Oh, well, what's your name again? Sue? Hey, I'm Steve." And I'd love to see your 240 acres up there in Wisconsin. So yeah, so we dated. She was 16. I don't want to make this about me, but I was 17 and she was 16, and we met in Canada. And from there it was okay. The girls left. So they were waiting for Sue to graduate high school, and then they retired from there, sold my land, and went down to Mexico to follow my dreams of studying Mayan culture. Notice I said my land. Like, wait, that was gonna be our future. So yeah, but it turned out great. So all right. So this I'm gonna put this down here. And okay, getting started. Any questions before we begin? All right, so we're gonna jump right into this. Now I have this mic pointing this way in case you have questions, so that hopefully we can hear it better. So, but I will still try to repeat your question. I know online sometimes you get a question and you don't really hear what the question was. You try to figure out what the question was by what the answer was. So it's a little difficult. All right. Enough of that. All right. So I set out on a journey to research the Cedarville Memorial Day Parade history. And I got so deep into researching. My biggest question was when was the first Memorial Day celebrated in Cedarville? I have the answer. Which made me so excited. I want to tell everybody, but I didn't want to tell anybody yet. But we have cool stuff like the minutes from Cedarville Day the Cedarville Historical Society Association. This is 1906 to 1941. Then we have a book also of programs that were compiled, 49 to 79. And so there was a gap in here from 41 to 49. That was my second journey to see, did we stop doing this during the World War? And we found that no, we didn't, and I have some proof here of that. So there were no gaps. So what we've been telling people, well, what I've been telling people at the Memorial Day parade is we've been doing this probably as long, if not longer, than any other community in the state, and I can tell you that's true, still a true statement. But it wasn't easy getting started, and I'll tell you that in a second. So my source for this was newspaper.com, and when you do a Google search, it throws up a couple articles and it says, okay, so you can read part one. It says if you want to read more, subscribe. So I'm like, okay, I'll try this for 30 days, free subscription. But I subscribed and then started doing some research, and I realized, oh, this is worth, for us doing this research, it was worth $75 or $80 for a year or 6 months or something like that to do. So I wasn't even worried about that free 30 days. I was in. I was all in. So Sue was saying, honey, it's time for bed. It's like midnight, that kind of thing. And I was studying, and that if you went to the parade this year, the Whites, Janice White and her husband, that's what I used to do the research on them. So World War II veterans and all that stuff. So on this one, my first discovery that we went way before 1906, and I have proof, led me on a journey and led me on some rabbit trails. That led me on a journey to figure out when was our first Memorial Day parade here. So most of the concentration is going to be on really that beginning and how we got there and what the challenges were. So with that, I want to go to our beginning. What was Memorial Day and how did we get started? And most of you know, or a lot of you know, that John A. Logan wrote that general order starting Decoration Day, is what they call it at the beginning. But did you know that that's when he's born, 1826, 1886, he's born in Murfreesboro, Illinois. You know where that is? Near Carbondale. My grandpa and grandma just happened to live there in their retirement years. So I visited them in Murfreesboro, Lake Kincaid down there. So I was like, when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay. He was in the Mexican-American War, 1846, 1848. He was in Illinois House of Representatives from 1859 to 1862. D stands for, he was a Democrat, a Southern Democrat is what they called it. And he resigned to serve in the Civil War. Started as a brigadier general and ended up as a major general. After the war, he was reelected to Congress as a Republican. He changed sides. We'll probably talk about it a little bit later. And he also became the Grand Army of the Republic commander in 1868 for 3 terms. He wasn't the first one, but the Grand Army of the Republic was the American Legion of the Civil War era. When they started this in 1868, they just had hordes of people signing up. It was like, and it was extremely powerful in Washington for good reason. The first thing that he did, oops, wait a second. Okay, so you notice he was in Congress. He was also the commander of this GAR, which is not normal. Normal you don't have. It's conflicting a little bit, but back then they were able to do that. That he 1879, 1886, he was elected for the U.S. Senate. He died in 1886. So he died in office. All right, so one of the first things he did is enact General Order Number 11, which says 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet, churchyard, and land. In this observance, no form or ceremony is prescribed, but hosts and comrades will in their own way arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. There's a lot of controversy on who started Decoration Day or when it was started. When it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter. But what matters is somebody had to light the fire of the people, especially up north. In my opinion, the Northerners were won the war, let's get on with life, but they forgot about the sacrifice and what they, maybe locally there's some small, but I'm noticing, and you'll see in some of these articles, it took a while for us to get things going. In fact, it was his wife that told him when they did a memorial for a couple Civil War soldiers down in a cemetery down there in Murfreesboro. His wife was saying on the carriage ride back, he's like, honey, you gotta do something about this. You gotta, our soldiers deserve this kind of recognition and remembrance. So that I think was a lot of the push for him to get this going. They were doing this with Confederate soldiers down south already for years, down in Charleston, South Carolina. And in one of the articles I'll read, it kind of alludes to that. It's like they're doing it down there. They've been doing it for years to respect their soldiers. We should be doing this up here. So when I did the research, following Logan's orders, Decoration Day was observed as close to the original May 30th date as possible, though each community celebrated with their own variations. States proclaimed Decoration Day a holiday at different times. New York was the first in 1873, and most northern states followed suit by 1890. It took them that long to say, okay, that's it. We're going to make this a state holiday. I couldn't find Illinois. So Illinois was between 73 and 1890. But I would hope it was pretty close to 1873 since Logan's from Illinois, and he had a lot, and the GAR started in, I think it's Moline was its origin. So it was, all this was happening in Illinois. So I would hope, and his pull with Illinois and in the Illinois Congress and stuff, that he would be able to push that through. So I thought that was interesting. But remember those dates, 1873 to 1890. All right, so a little bit further here. In 1950, they felt it fitting to have a joint resolution to approve May 11th, or on May 11th, 1950. The president issued a proclamation calling upon the people of the United States to observe each Memorial Day as a day of prayer for permanent peace, and designating a period during each such day when the people of the United States might unite. So, encouraging people. This is after what, World War II. So now they're encouraging, come on, let's, all these, we've got, come on, people. Let's remember the sacrifice of our military and what they've done for us. All right. So in 1966, Congress resolved to recognize Memorial Day on May 30th. So that's official. Or the official beginning was May 30th in Waterloo, New York. So that's official, but they're still, that's fine. Let's just say Waterloo, good to go. Oops. So, the federal government declared this location as birthplace shortly after the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, legislated in '68, effective '71, designated Memorial Day as the last Monday in May. Because it was on the 30th, it might have been the middle of the week, and it was kind of hard to get things together. So this is more consistent. But then it gave you a 3-day weekend, so people said, okay, 3-day weekend, let's party. It's like, wait, don't forget, Memorial Day. That's why we do it every year. All right, so following Logan's orders, should we already do this one? Okay, here we go. 1879, Freeport Bulletin, May 22nd. It says, all right, this one, oops, okay, to the old soldiers of Cedarville County. At a meeting of old soldiers held at the sheriff's office last Saturday evening, it was unanimously resolved to take steps toward forming a permanent county organization of old soldiers, Civil War. And to that end, a meeting was called to be held at the courthouse at 3 o'clock Saturday evening. The object of this is to have an organization wherein every township in the county will be represented, so that each year, as Decoration Day comes around, will be so situated that we can decorate it here. So they're getting the people organized to try to get it going. And this George L. Pearsall, J.A. Sheets is actually a Civil War veteran. And I saw his name and I started doing some research on him. And I'm like, okay, I gotta stop doing that. But I think they both are Civil War veterans, or George is a city mayor or something like back then, something like that. So they're getting together, trying to get the community, all right, let's get together, let's get this thing going, and let's make it permanent. Because it sounds to me like they would have, some people would get together, and some years, and some people wouldn't. But 1879, it's only 3 years after the first state recognized it as a state holiday. So now Stevenson County is like, okay, come on, what's going on here? 1879, Freeport Bulletin, 529. Decoration Day will no doubt be properly observed tomorrow. The procession will form at the monument at 3 o'clock and form there, proceed to the cemetery with the graves of the fallen, then will be decorated. General Athens will be the delivery in the cemetery. So that would be Freeport right there. But we're seeing that, okay, soon after that, a week later, okay, they got together and said, okay, here's what's going to happen. All right, we'll make this happen. All right, 1879, 6-4. I have this online. I've got this highlighted, but it's hard to see the highlighter. So I'm going to have to try to remember where I highlighted this. All right, some of the highlights here. All right, this is after the observance. Last Friday the 30th, can you read that a little bit?
No.
All right, so it says, many people came in from the country and joined in the observance of the day. The public schools were dismissed by order of the Board of Education, so they got support from the schools, so they canceled school so the kids could show up. The militia company, under command of Lieutenant Burrell, turned out under arms, and the old soldiers, only a corporal of guard, of whom were present, formed in line, and once more marched behind the old colors they had followed through the war. So when it says a corporal and a few showed up, it says here also Then came a little squad of old soldiers, and in the rear, the school children. I am getting the picture that kind of like some of the other conflicts and wars, like Vietnam came back, they weren't really appreciated, and maybe they weren't getting recognition. So it's like, all right, someone show up. So they had maybe a small group show up. I think it took a while for it to really get going, where they really felt appreciated. That's what I'm feeling on this. But it even gave you a name, a big list, and this goes on to the next article. There's a list of the old soldiers present who joined in the procession. Well, that's okay. So the actual colors, the old colors, a small group marched, but these are the ones that I guess were actually there, a big list that were represented. So some of them I didn't look, but some of them might be actually in our rolls that we do for the Cedarville Cemetery. I didn't get a chance to look at that. All right, 1881, Freeport Journal, May 4th. Decoration Day is fast approaching, and yet no move has been made to properly observe it in this city. It is due to the memory of the departed heroes who fell in defense of their country that at least one day of the year should be set aside and devoted to them. Let the matter be considered at once and all the details arranged before it's too late. Let's go, people. So in 79, they had their procession, but apparently it's like, okay, we did it. Let's go back home and get to our normal lives. Freeport Daily Bulletin, 519. All right, Decoration Day. All right, Armory Hall will be open at 2 o'clock Saturday, May 29th, with committee present to receive evergreens for the decorating of the graves. So they're talking about ladies and boys. So they came out on 519. I guess that article got them going again, and they had a good plan. The decorating of the Confederate graves. Okay, here it is. All right. So on this one, 1881, we earnestly desire that the ladies, our boys and girls, everybody come and bring their tokens of respect for the memories of our dead soldiers. We noticed that the decorating of Confederate graves in many places south this year has been done with great enthusiasm. And if the memories of these soldiers, who in their mind and their blind, they were pretty colorful back then, okay, and their blind infatuation for a few ambitious leaders sacrificed their lives in the vain attempt to overthrow the best government on earth, if the memories are entitled to so much respect and reverence, we feel as though the brave boys who died in the successful defense of that government should receive at least an equal share of the nation's gratitude. In the dark hours of uncertain conflict, it was the encouraging words and practical aid of our citizens at home that served our hearts and strengthened our arms. And we hope that as many of you as possible will turn out to the Decoration Day next Monday evening. And that's George Pearsall again. So that's definitely let's go. Let's get out there. Interesting. All right, 1882, 520. The committee having in charge the arrangements for Decoration Day, consisting of Kleckler and DeVore and Jans, had a conference on Monday evening and decided to invite all these civic companies. So they had a conference. Whereas General Sheets of Oregon has been secured as the orator, and every possible effort will be made to properly observe the day the community deserves the hearty cooperation of our citizens generally, for in no other way can the custom of fittingly observe of decorating the graves of those who lost their lives in defense of their country. All right, so 1882, a call to action. 1882, Chicago Tribune. Here we go. Chicago Tribune. Cedarville made it. All right. Decoration Day was appropriately observed here. General B.F. Sheets of Oregon delivered the address. In the evening, a camp meeting and entertainment was given at the Armory Hall under the auspices of John A. Davis Post GAR. It was called the John Davis Post GAR. That's the local post. And of the city, the address of welcome was delivered by James J. Neff, followed by an address on the Army Signal Corps by Captain Richards, editor of the Daily Journal. More reminiscences by O.C. Lathrop. You recognize the name? Okay. And J. Sheets and others. With recitations and music, the Honorable Robert H. Wiles delivered the address where? At Cedarville. So, I can say that here's proof for sure that we had an observance in Cedarville as early as 1882. So,
The Chicago Tribune
in the
doesn't
Chicago
lie.
Tribune. Chicago Tribune doesn't lie.
Doesn't lie.
So, I was very excited to see that. So, and then see it, it's in the big paper in Chicago.
How did you find it, Steve? I'm curious.
I did a lot of Cedarville Memorial Day Parade, and I did a lot, there were like 2,000 articles that I had to go through to find the dates. So I concentrated on everything pre-1906, basically, trying to find the origins. So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is.
All right, 1882, the Stevenson Farmer, June 2nd. Public schools enjoyed a half-day's vacation on Decoration Day, so I gave the half day. O.C. Lathrop of Freeport delivered decoration address at Cedarville. Honorable James Shaw talked to the people of Mount Carroll decoration. Okay, so they're talking about who gave the addresses in the different areas. So there's Cedarville again, and Lathrop was Cedarville. All right, 1883, Daily Journal, May 22nd. New sidetrack. Okay. In many of these sections, it's in what's happening locally. So if you're not careful, you're reading about Farmer Joe's cow that got sick, and stuff like that. It's like, oh, that's interesting. But what's really interesting is you start reading these, it would talk about Jane Addams or someone in the Addams family having visitors, or people visiting somewhere in Wisconsin or in California. So you have records of people visiting other people. It's really interesting. You could actually, there's so many of them, and people wrote so many of these little local articles that you could almost figure out where people were in a span, where they hung out, where they ended up, where they went to weddings and things like that.
Do you think in 1882 and 83 did it belong to the cemetery?
I'll get to that, because the first walk to the cemetery is coming up real soon. Good question. Question, what do you think? They went to the cemetery for observing. I have a feeling that with these, I have a feeling they did it at churches. They didn't necessarily maybe march over there, but they brought the kids there and decorated the graves, because that was the general order that Logan had, was to decorate the graves with flowers. So they would go out there. And some of the research I did, May is a good spin-off, but May 30th was also designated because that's when the lilacs were in full bloom and a lot of the flowers were in full bloom. And I read some of the articles in the 50s and 40s where Leroy, in this, he was talking to some of his recollections of Memorial Day, and he would say that, yeah, the earliest ones in the 30s, I remember the ladies would go out and pick the lilacs and just fill the church, and it would smell like lilacs, and that's what would remind me the rest of my life of Memorial Day, the lilacs and stuff. So, on this one, okay. So, Reverend Savage delivered the address at Cedarville on Decoration Day. So, 1883, Cedarville definitely had it. 1885, May 22nd, there's Cedarville happenings. Let everybody take a rest and help commemorate on Decoration Day the program at Cedarville. It will be under the care of Mr. Ilgen, he's one of our pioneers. E.G. Ilgen, president of Cedarville back then, 1885. Reverend Parkhill, A.J. Bates, it's got cut off a little bit, Marshall, Captain Buchanan, Byers, someone from Wisconsin, probably he could be a warrior, politician or someone, he got it from Monroe. So when they formed these, they would look for a speaker, and they would try to bring someone in that would draw a lot of people in. So this guy from Monroe, Lathrop. You remember the presentations we had on Jane Addams, and we had one on Miss Lathrop. I read an article when I was doing these that she did some concerts at the hall in Freeport where she was revered for her violin playing and stuff. She's like world class, and she was playing in Chicago and stuff like that. And it was like I didn't want to pull up the article because we would get sidetracked, but it was very interesting. She was very, very popular back then. All right, so 1887. All right, so the big thing here, this is Cedarville. We definitely had 1887. All right, the people of Cedarville had a very interesting memorial exercise this morning. What does that mean? Why would they say that? Interesting. And here's where I think it's interesting because they added all the stuff to it. I think this is where, okay, they started at the church in large numbers where the following program was carried out: Song and Peace They Sleep, Please Sleep, prayer by Reverend Parkey of Knoxville, Illinois. Song Will Ever Keep Their Memory Green. Blue and Gray, a poem, reciting a stanza by each of 7 different boys, sons of veterans. The song On and On, The Boys Come Marching, memorial address by Reverend Gillingham of Cedarville Presbyterian Church. Song Tenting on the Old Campground, patriotic, I think. Music sacred selections by the Cornet Band of Cedarville. Anybody ever hear of the Cornet Band of Cedarville? That's a separate one to research. After the exercises at the church, a procession was formed and marched to the village cemetery where the graves of the old soldiers were decorated, thus concluding the exercise of the day. In the procession, the old veterans were followed by the public school children of the village. So I think when she says interesting,
Yeah.
it just makes me think, okay, this may be where Cedarville is stepping out and saying, okay, you know what, enough is enough. We have so many of the old boys in the cemetery. and so many Civil War veterans are just from Cedarville. Cedarville, I think, just recognized that and said, okay, we need to not rely on Freeport to do all this stuff. Let's get together and do it and make sure they get the honor that they deserve. So I think this is where that really started. Okay. 5:30. Oh, this is. I need to make copies for you if you want to read the whole thing. But this is a story of, very inspirational story, of a chaplain, a Freeport chaplain, who was a Civil War veteran, and he joined when he was 14. And it says there are a few younger in the United States that joined. When he joined the Union Army to fight for the cause of his country, he was but a boy, 14 years old. His home was in Pennsylvania. His mother died in 1862, and a few months later, his father enlisted in Company F, Pennsylvania Volunteers. At the Battle of Fredericksburg, his father was killed in 1882, so he lost both parents. Left without father and mother, here it starts up again right here. Left without father and mother, and filled with the war spirit, he having at that time 4 uncles, his father's brothers, in the army, young Catton, now a minister of the gospel presently, but then a strong, stalwart boy, enlisted in August in 1864 in the same company that his father fought with. All right, not so fast. But he was not permitted to remain long, because one of his uncles in the same company was with them, thinking that he was entirely too young to be a soldier. After some 4 or 5 months, basically worked to get him out. Okay, no, you're too young. Out. You're too young. But when asked about his army life, Mr. Catton was a little modest about telling of it for publication, not creating to be worshipped, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so he was humble. But what it says here at the bottom, having been, okay, they lie in an unknown, okay, his father, whatever became of the remains of his father, he knows not. They lie in an unknown, unmarked grave, having been buried on the battlefield where he fell. So today, when Chaplain Catton speaks of the unknown dead heroes, he cannot help thinking of that father who died for his country at Fredericksburg. This chaplain did actually fight. Okay, he was actually long enough to be part of one battle that Hatcher Run in Virginia. So he was actually in one. I had to bring that up. It came up, and I thought it was really, really interesting. Some of the thinking back then of the Civil War veterans and stuff like that. So, and then him, I can see him being one of the vocals of saying, "People, come out! You need to come out! You need to come out and honor the people who died for our country, fighting." All right, 1893. Okay, I'm not gonna read this. This is one of the spin-offs that I was talking about. Old Settlers Day. A lot of you know about it. But what grabbed my attention on this was it moved to Cedarville. The reunion at Cedarville in an enthusiastic, nearly 7,000 people were at this function. And I'm like, okay, I read through this and I was like, whoa, this is a big deal. And I know we had talked about it a little bit here. There's a couple articles, but maybe we do a program on Settlers Day, because even Leroy, I read a little section in here where he remembers when he was a kid, Settlers Day. I think they stopped in 73 or early 70s or something. I can't remember. Does anybody remember Settlers Day when it stopped? Yes.
Okay, Settlers Day,
Yeah.
I thought I read someplace it went on like 80 or 90 years, don't quote me, maybe from the 1860s and
Yeah.
maybe to the end of the 1950s, because see, my Aunt Sarah Matter, one time, when her and my grandmother moved to Cedarville, she said there used to be some kind of old settlers meeting up, a couple blocks up, and something referred to as the Grove at the time. Now, I wish it lasted longer. I thought it was interesting to read about it.
So I just wanted to pull this up shortly. Thank you for that. I just wanted to pull this up because, okay, maybe we do this in our future, talk about Settlers Day, because I am like, okay, I don't want to go any deeper than this because it's gonna take a while. Speaking of, all right, how long do I have?
As long as you like. It's 8:13.
I know, so it's almost an hour already. All right, when I get behind a podium, I tend to talk. I'm getting ready to do right now. I learned how to speak behind a podium. I didn't know I could teach, but I found out I could when I went in the military. Became an instructor, avionics instructor, and I found out, hey, I like doing this, and I enjoy telling people what I learned. And that's why I'm excited up here, because I learned some things, and I want you to be excited, because I got excited.
Well, you did all this research, for gosh sakes.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. 1899, okay, Cedarville. The Decoration Day was properly observed. So color guard, Reverend Cullen. So 1899, the parade from the church to the cemetery. So that whole thing, starting at a church, doing a function. And by the way, Galen, I don't want to forget this, but Galen, I did the research, and he sang in 1969 a solo, and 1973. You're Galen Bertrand, right? Yeah. Did you know that? Did you remember? 1969, Memorial Day, at the, I can't remember which church it was, remember the church that you went to, but you sang a solo there. And then again, I guess they liked it so much they brought you back in 72 or 73. So I think they had it in the same church. I thought that was really cool. It's like, that's a long time ago. You were just as handsome, I'm sure, as you are now. Wow, that's cool. All right, 1929. All right, keep in mind, okay, here's the setting. Decoration Day. The South didn't like calling it Decoration Day because, this is a northern thing. So they were doing their own thing down there, and they're happy doing it. Then the GAR, of course, they're not going to join the GAR from down there. So first of all, War of Spanish America, War of 1898. Doing some research, I saw that all of a sudden we're remembering war dead of another war. We have two in ours, I think, from 1898. So I think that started people thinking, okay, this isn't just Decoration Day, isn't just for the Civil War. Now we got other things coming in. Then World War I came and just blew holes through everything. It's like, whoa, the South and the North are fighting. They're going to Europe. They're dying for causes. They came back. Now they've got World War I soldiers, military in our cemeteries, and now, okay, there's the Decoration Day thing. Now we've got people from the South that we're remembering, fighting for our country. So I think right around this time is when they started to talk about Memorial Day, to be a little more considerate a little bit more sensitive to the South, because you start seeing around this time, after the First World War, you see Memorial Day used a lot. So I'm pretty sure, I have a hunch that that's what's going on. So this one,
1929 is when I think the cannon was able to be brought to the Cedarville Cemetery.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's been there for a while. 1929. So that's, yeah, I didn't even think about that. But they have, here's the let's see, Wagner, you might notice some names here, but they're calling it Memorial Day, not Decoration Day. But you see articles, they were still calling it Decoration Day in the 50s and 60s. But when you saw articles in the paper, it was Decoration Day, coming, we got a 3-day sale, coming, you know, it's like, what? Get good. Next, you know, I don't want to read about your sale for Memorial, you know, just that. So, okay, so 1929, 1941, here's where I have proof that we still did Memorial Day between 1941 and 1949. So I got a couple examples here. So, Cedarville citizens make plans for Memorial Day observance, and that's 1941. All right, 1943. Big thing here is Orangeville High School band. I saw them in a lot of articles. Orangeville was pretty big back then too, and their band apparently was really good. Their high school band, because I got even pictures of them in 46 or 52. I'll show you a little bit later. That we invited them over to play and march in our parade. 47, observance at Cedarville on Friday. You'll see it started at the Cedarville Methodist Church. Lots of stuff. Ladies Quartet. So they really went through a lot, did a lot of things, and it was pretty neat to read through these. But the same thing starts at a church, at a service, march to the cemetery, at a service there. They did the bridge. Forgot to say the bridge. The bridge was actually, it's in one of these. It's in I think 29. I think even. I think it was in that one. Mark mentioned the bridge. So 48. Dexter Knowlton was in charge. I saw his name a lot. So very involved. 72. Memorial Day, so in 72. All right, the Gettysburg Address. The Gettysburg Address was used. I was trying to see if I could figure out when it was first used. I saw it recited in something like 1907 or 1908. So but that's natural because the Gettysburg Address, I think it was coupled from the beginning with the Civil War and the Civil War soldiers. But it was formally coupled by the Army. Let's see, the American Legion started in 1919, which is again the World War I came along, and the GAR was okay. I think that's when it kind of changed into another organization, the American Legion, because we wanted to include the whole country, not just the Northerners. So pretty sure that happened. Gettysburg Address and TAPS. TAPS. I found out that TAPS was started with the Memorial Day and Decoration Day parades when the Army made it official, when they were putting together, because of all the war dead in the Civil War, they were doing national cemeteries. And they came up with a policy to include taps in the Army regulations. So that's why taps started pretty early. It doesn't say they played taps necessarily in some of these, but it was the Army that I think really cemented it to the observance of Memorial Day. Gettysburg Address, 75, Cedarville, Kaiser, Bridge Services, Gettysburg Address. All right. So here we are, 1946. So I've got four dates here. I'll go through the pictures. All right. So this is color guard, 1946, and this is entering the. Well, that's actually leaving. There's the cemetery. So this is at the end. This is at the end, coming back out. So, but it's like looking at this so many times and marching this ourselves. It's like, wow, this is 1946. We've been doing this for so long, and it's the same road that splits right here, goes around there. It's I just thought it was fascinating. There's a cemetery looking down. All the cars parked there from the 40s. It'd be nice to have one of those now. Wow. But very nice. 52, forming up. Paul Kreider's in the front left. Here's Paul Kreider. Every picture you see of him, he's smiling. He loved to smile. I don't know if anybody remembers Paul Kreider, but he seemed to always smile. Every picture, he's smiling. He's happy. All right. There we are marching in 1952. Marching to the bridge. And I'm looking at these telephone poles, and I'm looking at this bridge, and I'm like, okay, is this the same bridge, same location? It has to be. If that's so, then the Adams house is back here in the woods somewhere. And Moira's, you're over here somewhere. So I'm wondering maybe if this picture's backwards, even. Maybe we're looking the other direction. This looks more like the cemetery would be back in this direction. So they're forming up. The Reverend is scratching his head. I think he's. All right, there they are, firing squad. Okay, 52. They're going up the sidewalk, and they're wearing uniforms. Because in 52, they encouraged that. They could still fit in them because it was not long after the war. So they were encouraged to wear uniforms. So there's a staff sergeant there. He has 3 stripes. Every stripe is 3 years. So he has had 3, 6, at least 9 years in the Army. I'm not sure who that is though. So we can find that out. But that's what those stripes are. Hash marks we call them. All right. So there is smiling Paul Kreider. Anybody know how long he was in? I'll find out. Because now I see a few hash marks, so possibly I know. There's 1 hash mark on there, so he finished 3 years. All right, so Brown Bunch. Okay, there's the Orangeville High School Band, 1952. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, there they are, parade dress, 1952. Now, that's the tree. This boy here. Well, at first I thought he was holding a wooden rifle, but that was just a tree, the way he was sitting there. But it looks like he's almost copying them at parade rest. I think he is. He's sitting here like this, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I think he's pretending like he's one of them, which I thought was pretty cool. All right, so there they are. 53, 1953. Paul Kreider, still smiling.
Yeah.
All right, Cedarville American Legion. There's a proud bunch there in next picture, I'll show you who each one was. Did you pick up Paul Brandon? Right there, smile.
Isn't it Charlie? Yeah.
Okay, there it is. I didn't have time to write it. There's Merle Myers, Bob Fink, Murdoch, Paul Prater.
Who did you say you saw?
Charlie Craig. He's on the far right.
Yeah. Dutch Lens, Lenny, Ben Confer. So 53. Paul Prater, smiling. Then, okay, coming out of the Evangelical Church, 1954. Look at how excited that boy is. That's what I was saying. That's so cool. So, I'm not sure who that is, but I think the color guard, that's the same color guard, 1954. I'm trying to figure out who this would have been. But she's high school. I just saw it. Does that say high school? Something in Illinois. So she might be part of the band right behind her. So I think that's what it is. Okay, there they are. There's Paul. You tell. Smiling. Okay, so firing squad, Merle Myers, Paul Kreider, and Bob Fink for sure. I guess Merle, Paul, and Bob Fink. Firing squad, Dutch Lens. That's him there. So he was in charge of the firing squad. Those guys look tall. Paul Kreider not smiling. That's the first one I've seen him not smiling, but he's very intense. Okay, behind them, I couldn't figure out if these ladies, I was looking at the program, couldn't really pick them up, but they may have been, since they're all together, I think they had a ladies' choir, like singing. So I thought that was interesting. Because they had instruments, and I think I saw possibly holding an instrument. I'm not sure what she's holding there. Someone had some instrument. But Gail Wilson and Joyce Comfort is who Paul Kreider's wife thinks these ladies are. Anybody?
They had the ladies auxiliary too.
Ladies auxiliary, that could be too. Yes, because that was big back then. At World War II, it was huge. They had American Legion started in 1919. And it just got huge, especially after World War II. You had the auxiliary, you had sons of the Legion, you had daughters of the Legion, you had a lot of things, a lot of organizations that wanted to be tied to the
Joyce Confer's husband, I think, was Ben Confer.
Ben Confer.
He owned the Chevrolet business in Lena.
There you go. That was Ben in that one picture. Okay, so Boy Scouts, and I'm pretty sure it's the Girl Scouts behind them. They're holding the flag. There's bridge ceremony, 1954. Cemetery, coming up cemetery.
Wait, that's awfully familiar.
Yeah.
Good job. Carrying it on.
Cemetery, 54. There's the cannon guy. This I like watching the little guys.
Yeah.
That little girl, look at her. It's just like, and the stories, even back then, the stories of after they're finished firing and they're dismissed, what happens to the kids? They're diving for all the spent rounds. Even Leroy's, in his earliest recollections, he said, yep, that was the greatest part.
Is the cannon in the same place?
Yes.
Is it?
Same place.
I would love to take that picture and see if any of those trees are still there.
I mean, we're still
there.
standing there.
Yeah.
1954. That may be.
That's cool.
No, the whites aren't there yet because I'm standing here and I'm looking at their tombstones. So they're World War II veterans. So it's pretty neat. 54 Cemetery that they're firing squad, and there they are. Okay, 1954 American Legion. Oh yeah, I saw this guy marching. The tall guy with the glasses. So Tony Scudo, right there. Merlin Krones, Merle Myers. There's Dutch, Paul Kreider, Leroy, here he is. Yep. And Joey
Well, that's
Carlson. Leo Warwick, Bob Freeman, and Charles Kreider. All right. So Leroy, he was one of the originals that formed the Cedarville American Legion in 1954. And he tells it in his book here. I kind of skimmed through it. But he was basically doing the parade since then. And then I remember him talking before he passed away in 2008. He wanted it to keep going. And he asked Jim if, the Legion may not be able to keep this going because we're getting smaller and smaller. And I remember going to one meeting where it's like, hey, Cedarville is going to dissolve unless we get some people to sign up. And I'm like,
Good job.
and then they're like, oh, okay, you're the commander. I'm like, what? So, okay. So yeah, and it was like, after just watching this, I knew we got to keep this going. But I didn't realize back then how important this was to this area. It's definitely something that needs to keep going. So there's Ben Confer, Leroy Wilson. All right, here's 1994 example. This is like it was yesterday. There's Leroy right there. And some of them you might recognize. I'm not sure, but there we are. Dexter Knowlton, Leo Mordick, and Gary Dickers is the speaker. Anybody know Gary Dickers? Must be from out of town. That's another presentation later. All right, so that's 1994. And there's Paul Kreider. Hey, smile. And Dexter Knowlton. Okay. And then this picture there. There's the cannon. 1994. Bob and Ruth Wagner. And Reverend Swain. Anybody know which church he was? Methodist preacher.
Yeah.
Okay. So he gave the prayer of benediction that day. So that's the Cedarville Memorial Day Parade history.
That was a lot of work.
I could have kept going for another couple hours, as you could probably tell. But
So,
questions?
so the exact date that you think, that you surmise from all your research that the parade,
First one?
Yeah.
In Cedarville.
yes,
The first evidence.
1887.
1887. May
They're all
30th.
the Chicago Tribune. Which was it 87?
Yeah, so, I think so. Or 88.
No, hold on. Where'd it go?
82. 82?
It was 1887 because I took a picture of the slide.
Take a picture of that one. Because that's the one where it says, Robert H. Wiles delivered the address at Cedarville.
18.
That's the first mention of Cedarville, someone giving the address to, on Decoration Day.
So do they do a lot of, because when I was looking at the books, so that it's almost like they have the religious ceremonies first, like separate.
Yep.
Sometimes they're not on the same day, and then Memorial Day.
Oh, because there were some where I think if Memorial Day fell on a Sunday,
Yeah.
you know, they would probably combine it for sure. But if it fell on a Monday, they may say, okay, let's not do a church service on Sunday, and let's do another on Monday. Or do another church service on Monday. Maybe they just kind of have it separated. That and weather. I saw some entries where it's like, okay, it rained like crazy today. We're gonna have it tomorrow.
Yeah,
kind of
they
thing.
just moved it.
So it just moved it. So, yeah, very interesting. So there was, Wendy, did you do this? Did
Yeah.
you do the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
You did that? So,
That's from the books.
yes, so you went through these books and you just jotted notes,
Yeah.
which would have made me go, this one here is handwritten in cursive.
Yeah.
So, and I was looking at this, and I started looking at this because I was going to take information off of this and make an Excel spreadsheet and kind of go over some highlights from each one. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. But I'm like, I want to give her credit for this because she did, it would make your eyes go buggy trying to do that. Because I was going to say, okay, who's in charge of each one? And I'm like, it's too late. I can't.
Well, they would say that they were grand marshals,
Yeah,
but they weren't.
but not always.
But they weren't grand marshals like we. When I first started looking at that, I thought grand marshal was, he led the parade,
Yeah,
but he wasn't.
there was the organizer, like
Yes.
that's the person who was in charge of. Okay, you've got the speaker, you've got the flowers, you've got this. Who's in charge of marching everybody? Okay, and then they're making sure they probably find the church that volunteers to do it that year, and the singer. In 1969, it was Galen.
Yeah.
With this solo. There
But
must be
you
a
did-
recording of that somewhere.
Galen did the solo that year, 1969, and then your dad did the Gettysburg Address that year.
My dad? Wow. Yeah. Well, Lucy Knight, who wrote a book about Jane Addams,
Yeah.
she had a description about Memorial Day.
I know. See, once you start digging
Yeah.
in, there's so many people that. What? Let's see. Yeah. 69. No, it was Kenneth Milton. Kenneth Milton did the Gettysburg Address.
Okay, here's the 1969. 1969,
There you are.
Memorial Day, 9 o'clock, Cedarville United Methodist Church. Who's the soloist? There it is.
Yes.
That's not good. That's so long. Isn't that cool?
Well, he was just saying, Galen was just saying, he sang for so many different things.
Did you
He did.
catch what happened on this Memorial Day? I don't know how we got our signals crossed, but I thought Galen was going to be doing the singing
Yeah.
at the cemetery. And when I got okay, next on the agenda, Galen Bertrand will lead us in singing.
No,
Galen.
no.
Galen, I heard someone, here's at the museum. Let's all be singing. That's funny. So, any other questions? I just thought fascinating what it was like back then. And, you know, it was very similar to what it's like in periods in recent history, too. Before 9/11, when I was in, nobody ever thanked me for my service. From 1983 all the way to 2000, you know, when I walked in uniform, it was like, oh, you're in service. Now it's like, I think it's awesome, but you know, sometimes it just takes a movement. And I really like how people step out of the way these days for anybody who says they were in the military. Thank you for your service. First thing they say is like, oh, thank you. So, yeah.
Not growing up in Cedarville, but always being a part of the Memorial Day Parade since I was a little girl. It's been always a big deal. I'm glad it still goes on. My dad's always said, we don't need a parade with clowns.
Yes.
We need a parade,
Right.
you know, that is.
Yeah.
Yes.
As you start hearing some of these bigger cities, they get, you know, Joe's cars.
Yeah.
Life of Joe, we love it.
I know.
No, that's not.
No,
This is Norman Rockwell.
This is what it's
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I think this one, and Bill's been doing it for years and years and years. When's the first time you did the Memorial Day Parade? Bill, you remember?
When did you first do the parade?
That you remember doing the marching in the parade?
In the
70s?
Well, we came out here
70s.
in 1970, so it was right after that.
Yeah.
But another thing, you know, my grandmother, I remember going with her to the cemeteries. We lived on the farm. My grandma lived with us. My grandma was gone, and she'd bring the flowers, you know, from home. But it was always Decoration Day. I think she called it Decoration Day until the day she died. She died in 1954.
Sure.
Yeah.
She wasn't able to go to the cemeteries.
Yes.
She was bedfast for a few
Yeah.
years, but it was still called Decoration Day
Yeah.
to her.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Yes.
It's right there.
Speaking of your research, with the loss of Paul Fry now, we don't really have anybody to turn to get some factual information from a person. It almost has to be in writing.
Yeah.
What you found here.
Well, look out. Because we may have just unopened
Something else for you.
another passion. Because there's between the research I did for the World War II couple at the cemetery, I just thought that was so cool. And then some of the things that I saw when I've always liked history, but like your dad would say though, Jim would see rabbit holes and he would always say, no, not going there. We stay focused, otherwise you won't get any research done. And when I was doing this research, I was remembering him saying that. It's like, yeah, another time. So I was like, oh, it's like a kid in a candy store. It's like, oh, no, not now.
Yeah.
Gotta focus on these. So
So,
yeah.
does anybody remember that? I think we talked about it a while ago. Elfrida Zimmerman. Yeah. Because she played at a lot of the services, the
Yes,
Memorial Day
Zimmerman.
services.
Yeah, saw her
Or
name.
at the Decoration Day ones.
Mhm.
Not so much the Memorial Day ones, but the Decoration Days. She played a lot of them. She played piano.
Oh,
She's the one that played, I think her house was the. Yes. Yeah. She was a piano teacher. And, I don't know what else. I just remember being a piano teacher.
Yeah.
She was Galen's piano teacher. Wasn't she?
Very good. See?
Wow.
Get that writing.
Oh, it's on YouTube forever.
I used to ride my horse.
Yeah. And Galen, we said Galen's name so much. Now the AI, you know, is going to think Galen's a celebrity or something and start
Well, he is.
looking for him. Oh, he is. Now he is. For sure. So. The next program is July 16th. July 16th, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Just point at me. 7 p.m. So we're going to be covering, because this is the 175th birthday anniversary of Cedarville, 1849. But I haven't seen any proof of that yet. I started doing some research. Did you find it?
Yeah.
Find it?
It's when they developed, they established the plat survey of the city.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's officially a city.
Ilgen, somebody else.
Elgin. Besides the name up there.
Yep.
Elgin.
So yeah, it was 1849. It was the plat. It's when they established the plat,
Yeah.
which then formalized them as and they filed whatever paperwork they had to do
Right.
to become incorporated, I guess.
175th anniversary. There was some movement earlier, a few months ago, where they tried to get together and come up with something, and it kind of fizzled out. But we made it a point to make a presentation so we can officially recognize Cedarville 175th. And we're not sure what the format is. Maybe just talk about some of the, make it more of an open kind of thing, maybe a basic outline, and just talk about, I started to look at some of the, again, articles that are back. There's a treasure trove full of articles in our newsletters going back to 2004 that I even forgot about, that Jim wrote. It's like, oh, we actually wrote an article about this already.
They're right on the site. On the site.
Yeah, so go on the site, just open them up, they're real easy.
Because what we really need is somebody to say, this business was at this address.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there were so many different businesses at the same address.
Yeah. But businesses, the blue Cedarville book that's down there, it has pictures of the different buildings. That's actually really cool.
It
Go
is.
through there again. It's talking about many of the businesses that were here. Some history. I found where's the creamery? Where's the painting of the creamery?
Oh, it's actually there, but it's not hanging out.
Okay, the creamery. You know where that's located? We're behind your house at Dead End Street. I'm like, because I saw a picture of them, and I'm like, where is this place? It says it's on 2nd Street. I'm like, it must be that direction. So I drove down there. It's a dead end. And it says keep out or whatever. But I was like, that's it. That's the creamery. I'm looking at the painting that we have of the creamery. It's like, it's still there. It's really cool.
That is.
So yes.
And that reminds me, I'm not sure what that street is called, maybe that's what you call 2nd Street, but one time I went to an auction, I went past Sharon and Jim's place, it looked like a dead end, and I went east. I went into an auction to this house, and I thought, the way it was made, I thought, oh yeah, that's a strange looking building, and I thought, was there a cheese factory in there at one time? Is that what you guys are talking about?
Yeah.
That was the creamery?
Mm-hmm.
Because the way that thing was made, it looked like it had been a cheese factory, or you wouldn't see things there like
I'm
it
sure
was.
I'm sure they did cheese there too. Yeah. But yeah, pretty cool. This is 2nd Street. That's 2nd Street right there.
All I know is the road goes past the school. It goes
Yes,
to the historical society, that's what I think.
that's the other side of Mill Street, the main drag of Mill Street. Cedarville was called the Gem of Stevenson County in 1898
And why was that?
because it was so beautiful. The house, Mill Street was so beautiful, and the layout and the houses were of high quality, is what it said. The gem, it was the gem of Stevenson County, Cedarville.
Wow. Cool.
Didn't there used to be a brick factory in Cedarville at one time too?
Who?
A brick factory, a
Oh,
brick.
yeah,
That's
Canfield.
more
Yeah.
like in,
Canfield bricks.
yeah.
Jim was always fascinated with that, trying to find it, and he thinks he found it in the field back there, but it was in the other side of the cemetery in that area.
Field trip.
Well, I did. Paul, it was 10 years ago. Paul Fry took me on, with Moira's permission. He showed me where the mill was.
Oh.
So we went on a little hiking trail in through the woods. And so he was like, he's still in his like 80s, late 80s. So that was fun. All right, so we'll hopefully we'll see you July 19th.
16.
I'm sorry,
16.
July 16th. July 16th. Thank you.
Actually, Paul Fry's moving up here every year.
And we'll be presenting Paul's plaque, or we already presented it to him, and
Yes.
but we will be announcing it
Yeah.
publicly. So, okay,
I just
thank you, everybody.
You guys better come and eat something.
Come and eat something.
Now, I thought Cedarville was called the town of Harrison at one time.
It was. It had 3 names.
Yeah. Harrison and then Cedarville, that's what